In this tutorial we'll have a look at Sense, and I'll take you on a wee tour of what's here on the screen. You can see what Sense is made up of and how we use it, and in future tutorials we'll do a few examples. So at the moment what you can see over here in this panel is basically this white area, which is what we call the stage. You can see the stages down here in this panel as well. Also, the name of the stage is up here. Now what that means is that any scripts that we create in this area will be attached to the stage. Okay, and that's quite important because later on we'll do some more work with Sense, and you'll find that you can attach scripts to various other areas other than just the stage. We can attach them to what's called sprites, and we'll come to that later on. Okay. Now we've got backgrounds, and at the moment you can see it's plain white, so you can either paint your own, which means you just design your own using these tools, and it looks very much just like any kind of paint editor that you've seen before. You can import, and if we do import, you can see here that we're going to the pictures folder, and we can add. And so I've just selected this Open University one, and when I click OK, you'll see it's loaded up. Okay, and it comes in with the name that we already had it, and that background's being displayed. Now you'll notice that it doesn't get rid of our original background, it keeps the original background. And again, we can edit this particular one, and it'll be loaded up in the paint palette for us to edit it. I'm not going to do that just now, and we can copy it as well. Now, for just now, I'm not really going to do anything with it, so I'll just delete it by clicking there. We can also add sounds, and again you can record your own by using the record button, or you can import sounds, and that will just add a list of sounds. All of these, the background and the sounds, will be attached to the stage because that's the currently selected sprite. Okay, so if we go back to scripts and click on the scripts pane, this area here is where we'll build our scripts that we're going to use to create our wee programs. Okay, and to do that we have a number of palettes, what we call palettes, and the one that's currently visible is a control palette, and in there we've got our when clicked, and we've also got our repetition or iteration type, things like forever, repeat, broadcast, which we'll meet later on in the course, and we've also got other control structures such as if, else, repeat, until, and these are all part of the kind of main building blocks of any program, which is basically sequence, selection and iteration. So your selection is based on these if statements, and your iteration is based on repeat, until, forever, repeat a certain amount of times. But again, we'll cover these in different tutorials. So that's our basic control structures. Some of the other palettes that you'll need will be things like the input palette, where we can, as you can see down here, we can use the pop-up message and get input, and again in future tutorials we'll have a wee look at how we can use these as well. We can also get information from the Sense board itself using these ones here and various different things. Okay, motion is probably a good one as well. You can see that there's no sprites on here that we can use to actually make any motion on here. Operators is a good one as well. You'll need these kind of operators to build conditions and statements that will help with our programs, and you can see it goes all the way down here with string as well and file options, so we can actually read and write files, and again you'll see that later on in our course. Okay, these are probably the ones that we'll use the most, just in the basics at the start, the arithmetic and the comparison and the boolean ones. These are probably the good ones. You can also see here variables. Now there are no variables because we make the variables as we go along. Variables are basically just an area that we reserve in memory, the computer's memory, with a name, and that just helps us go there and store values that the user will give us. And again, in future tutorials we'll see how these are are made and what we can do with them. Okay. And there's various other ones like sound and how things look, etc. But again, we'll come to these as and when we're ready. Okay, now the buttons along the top will allow us to create a new project, open an existing project. Now when you open an existing project, it will default into the projects folder that's already stored when you created or installed Sense, and we can list, we've got a list of programs that have been previously written. So if I go into Sense Programming Guide and into session 1, we've got this basic project here, and if we double click on it and load it up, you can see that we have this sprite, which is an arrow. Now notice that this sprite is active just now, and it's got that blue rim around it where the stage hasn't. So if we write any scripts, those scripts will be attached to this sprite. Now hopefully if I go into motion, you should see that we have a lot of different, if you like, directions that we can use. So we can move so many steps, turn in certain directions, point in certain directions. We can go to the middle of the screen, which is 0, 0. Okay, so we can essentially make the pointer move and create wee programs with it. Okay, now when we make any changes, we can say save. I haven't made any changes, so I won't press that, but I can also do save as. Now you can see there that it says save a copy of the current project. It's always a good idea when you're programming to click save as, and then that SPG project 01 is the original name of it. And if we just change that, what I like to do, and again it's up to yourself, is I like to do V1, which means version 1. So that means that I've got different versions of my file, which is always very good to have different versions of your file, so that you can always go back to a previous iteration that you know that works. Okay, we can use the undo button just to basically undo things, and we can also click this button here to start any Sense program. Again, some of these things will become more familiar once we actually create some programs, and we can click here to stop it. Now one of the interesting things that we have is this single step, which is currently greyed out, and this turbo button. Okay, we've got this slider in between which changes the execution speed. So at the moment it's set to turbo, which means that when we click the button, all the statements are executed. If however we slide it down to single step, it means that each statement will be executed a bit at a time. And again, we'll see how to use that, because this can be very useful for what we call debugging, and debugging is very important in programming. We need to kind of understand and watch how the steps work. Okay, so the next tutorial will actually create a Sense program.